So we'll go ahead and get started. This is the retreat day for the module on death and rebirth. So we start the next module on the 5th of May, and we do still have the discussion group this coming Monday as well, 21st. So my thinking for today is to try to do 3 meditations in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. Each should be about 20-ish minutes, between 20 and 30. Right. So we'll go ahead and start with setting our motivation for the day of retreat. And as we've said before, it's ideal because it is a day of retreat. It's ideal, at least until 4 o'clock or so, to make an effort to avoid entertainment. To try to put your phone away, to avoid, you know, uh, watching TV or a movie or something in the break time. So to really, use the whole period to just, to review the teachings, to think about the teachings, maybe to reflect, you could use the lunch break to reflect on the morning, you just do some journaling, some writing of how things went, what your thoughts were, rather than engaging in distraction for the day. So we think that as we set our motivation, we think back on the topic of death and rebirth and its place in our study of the Lam Rim. So I think that it is a lower scope teaching. And the purpose of the low scope, the reason why I am engaging in the practices of a person of the low scope, the practices held in common with practitioners of the low scope, is to set myself up for having a succession of perfect human rebirths. If I'm not able to complete the training in this life, then I will need a succession of perfect human rebirths in which I will complete the training. And it is the wisdom of the small scope that orients me to creating those causes and those conditions, and particularly here the contemplations of death and rebirth help me to stay motivated, help me to stay focused, to not wander off into distraction. It provides fuel for my practice. I think that we are engaging in the practices that are held in common with practitioners of the small scope so that we can master the small scope. And in turn, that will allow us to master the middle scope, ultimately enter the great scope, practice the great scope. And all of this together will lead to our enlightenment, complete elimination of our suffering, establishment of oneself in a state of perfect happiness, perfect contentment, perfect peace. But our motivation for achieving such a state is not for oneself alone. It is to have the ability to choose to reincarnate, to choose to work, to use our enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. To connect for a moment with the need in our world for enlightened energy, enlightened activity, all of the suffering that we see. I think that by achieving my enlightenment, I can help in the greatest way possible. I can help in smaller ways between now and then. But with that state, I can be of perfect benefit. So I take that as our motivation for the day. Creating the causes and the conditions to progress through the Lamrim and to achieve its purpose, the state of enlightenment. All right, and then we will recite the verse of taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit migratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit migratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit migratory beings. And we'll offer a mandala. We imagine requesting the Buddha's guidance. We imagine offering a divine, perfect universe in exchange for that guidance, those teachings. This ground is blessed with scent and with flowers, strewn with Mount Meru, the four lands, the sun and the moon, transformed as a pure land and offered. May all wandering beings enjoy this Buddha land. And the inner mandala, all those objects of my mind's three poisons, friend, enemy, and stranger, my body, wealth, and enjoyments. Without a sense of loss, I offer. Please receive them with pleasure and bless me with freedom from the three poisons. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. Right. And then we will recite the foundation of all good qualities, and we'll recite it twice. So we'll recite it once to familiarize our mind with the stages of the path, and then as we engage in the second recitation, we will stop at the verse of death and impermanence, where we are focusing for today. So, although I'm sure you all have it memorized, I will share it anyway. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect pure Guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once is greatly meaningful and is difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. This life is as impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. Finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me to always be careful to abandon even the slightest negative action and accomplish all virtuous deeds. Seeking samsaric pleasures is the door to all suffering. They are uncertain and cannot be relied upon. Recognizing these shortcomings, please bless me to generate the strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teachings is the keeping of the pratimoksha vows. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. Just as I have followed into the sea of samsara, so have all mother transmigratory beings. Please bless me to see this, train in supreme bodhicitta, and bear the responsibility of freeing transmigratory beings. Even if I develop only bodhicitta, but I don't practice the three types of morality, I will not achieve enlightenment. With my clear recognition of this, please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows with great energy. Once I have pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzed the meaning of reality, please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. Having become a pure vessel by training in the general path, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping pure vows and samaya. As I have become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Then, having realized the importance of the two stages, the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up the 4 sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. Like that, may the gurus who show the noble path and the spiritual friends who practice it have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the stages and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect pure guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once is greatly meaningful and is difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly day and night takes its essence. This life is as impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. So the second half of that verse is actually next, the next module, the module on karma. So it's sort of the first half of that last verse that is the teaching on death and impermanence. So before we get started, again, we do have the day of discussion on Monday for more full discussion of the philosophical material. But if people had a kind of a process question or a question more so that was related specifically to the meditations that were introduced in this module, um, we can pause for any questions like that.
Morning. How do we go about in daily practice working with this? Especially with this center, we have classes on Wednesdays and Fridays. So you go from one topic to another. Being new, I still haven't quite learned how to integrate all this. It's exciting. It's like there's a lot of things to learn, which is really nice, but I haven't mastered how to get all this together. Any tidbits from you or anybody else?
Anybody want to offer their other addressing that question? Well, so I do think that, it is not a quick process. I mean, I think everyone who sticks with it, I think everyone has the experience of, 3 or 4 years of having stuck with it, being like, oh, my understanding now is very different than it was 4 years ago. Like, I didn't grasp how this fit together, for a long time. And I think even after 10 years, a person has a deeper. So I think it's a process. Um, so in terms of the center's curriculum, I would say that it is the case that Discovering Buddhism as a 2-year course is its goal, it's kind of the backbone of what a person does until they finished it. And then, of course, there's like things like basic program and, kind of deeper dives. Um, but I would say that it's sort of, you know, in the beginning, the goal of the center, you could say perhaps, is to make a person um, feel comfortable with entering into discovering Buddhism. So, Buddhism in a nutshell, Meditation 101, sort of the um, meditation classes. Um, and then when a person, if a person is in discovery, and of course, not everyone wants to do, a multi-year study, of Buddhism. Um, but the other things that we are offering are kind of like deeper dives into different aspects of basically the Lam Rim. Um, Geshe-la last year, like his Sunday class, for example, he taught last year on the essence of refined gold, and he's going to, with this when he comes back, continuing with the essence of refined gold, which is also a Lam Rim text. Discovering Buddhism doesn't take a textual approach to the Lam Rim, they take a conceptual approach, right? So you're not studying there. I mean, there are excerpts from Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand as you're going through, but the teachers aren't really teaching from that text in a line by line sort of fashion. The approach to the teaching is sort of conceptual rather than textual. But Geshe-la's class is textual. He's going through the essence of refined gold. Um, so that class, you could review the recordings, from last year, and you could, start taking that class, on Sundays when for the next couple of months when he gets back. Um, that's another. I mean, the Lam Rim is always the Lam Rim. It's always the same, basically the same thing. All of the Lam Rim texts are just slightly different variations on the same ideas. Um, so in terms of, so it's important to get a sense of where, if a person's taking anything, it is kind of, and that's sort of why we review, for example, the Lam Rim prayer, right? So, because we can see, okay, well, the Lam Rim starts with Guru devotion. And of course, you can look at the Liberation in the Palm. It's a huge book, but you can look at the outline of it in the beginning, like where it has all of the first couple pages where it shows you the outline. Um, mhm. Do you have a
I'm sorry, I lost you. Which book were you referencing? I just cut off.
Pabanko Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand? In Discovering Buddhism, there are excerpts, throughout the course in that from that book. So as a whole, it is a Lam Rim text, as is um, Yangtze Rinpoche's Practicing the Path is really quite good. The middle length Lam Rim, Lama Tsongkhapa's middle length Lam Rim, or the Lam Rim Chenmo, those are all really good, options. So it's important, it's useful to be able to identify based on kind of having a structural understanding of the Lam, like where does this class fit? Where does this class come in, in this within the Lam? So is it like, Tarak Lama did it, just a 1 day on Guru devotion, right? So we would know, okay, well, that Guru devotion is the very first topic of the Lam. Um, Venerable Katie did a couple days on the death meditation, so we would know that's kind of this topic. Um, so you would say, okay, well, this is where it fits within the Lam by understanding kind of this outline. It starts with Guru devotion, then precious human rebirth, then death and impermanence, then karma, then renunciation, then bodhicitta, then um, so you kind of understand where, and then you say, okay, well, what is the purpose of the small scope? What is the purpose of the middle scope? What is the purpose of the great scope? What am I supposed to be learning? Am I supposed to be learning how to create good future rebirths? Am I supposed to be learning how to generate a sense of weariness, of samsara in general, so that I'm not, I'm learning how to not be overly caught up within samsara. I'm trying to learn what they call definite emergence or renunciation. Is it more so loving kindness, compassion, generosity? Is it like more so maybe the six perfections, which come under, kind of great scope teachings, perfection of generosity, patience, ethics, morality, enthusiastic perseverance, wisdom. Um, so having kind of that structural understanding of the Lam kind of helps you understand. Then you have to understand, okay, well, what are the three scopes of the Lam? What are they? What am I trying to get out of that particular scope? Um, so then you say, okay, well, this is reinforcing that part of it. In terms of a daily practice, there is a module. They put it kind of late in Discovering Buddhism, but there is a module on um, a daily practice. I think it's not the next one, but I think it's uh, the one after that, establishing a daily practice. I think it's module 8, establishing a daily. So that in establishing a daily practice, you will, they'll give you a lot of ideas about establishing a daily practice. Um, so in general, in terms of a meditation practice, as it relates to what you're learning, um, generally what Lama Zopa recommends is, because as we've seen, basically every module of Discovering Buddhism is one of these major topics of the Lam, precious human rebirth, death and impermanence, guru devotion, and then um, the one on there was sort of an overview that told you about the Lam, but in general they're kind of major topics of the Lam. So you would say, okay, I have a year, there's 12 months in a year, and so I'll spend 1 month on Guru devotion. I'll spend 1 month on precious human rebirth. I'll spend 1 month on death and impermanence. 1 month on karma. 1 month on renunciation. 1 month on um, and so you're learning, in each of these modules, you're being presented with 4 or 5 or 6 different meditations. And then you're also being exposed to excerpts from different texts and things. And if you are using liberation in the palm of your hand, or you're using practicing the path or the middle length Lam, um, I mean, at a certain point, I think it's helpful to pick up, you know, to um, to start using that as a companion. one of those sorts of books, because you'll get a little bit more. As I say, Discovering Buddhism isn't strictly a textual course, but I think it's quite good to start, using a companion in your study like that. So then you design 5 or 8 different meditations for perfect human rebirth, for death, and using, not making them up, but using, the outline that you're being given, the outline of that course, and creating, using your own experiences, your own examples where appropriate, your own life experiences, um, in terms of the individual contemplations, but um, and then just every single day. So, yeah, you might be, as you're meditating on perfect human rebirth, there might be a class that doesn't really, at the center, that isn't specifically on that topic. Um, but your own practice, I would say, Lama Zopa Rinpoche's advice is to focus over the course of a year in cycling through the whole Rim over the course of about a year. Um, so that gives you enough diversity that you won't get too it's not too repetitious, but also there is repetition, which is necessary. Like you're balancing depth with novelty. Because, if you tried to say, well, I mean, it's amazing to be like, I'm going to spend a whole year on Precious Human Rebirth, or a whole year. But that kind of repetition, I think, could burn a lot of people out at the beginning. So his approach is 1 month for each topic. And then so every day you would do at least one, maybe 2 sessions, using um, the material that using the actual meditations that are in the actual material, and then, where appropriate, designing, sessions that are taken from the topics that are in liberation in the palm of your hand, liberate in practicing the path, and so on. There's on the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, we've done 2 previous courses on the Lamrim in recent years. One, Venerable Dechen, did a series of meditations over maybe 6 months, I think it was. She did maybe 2 or 3 a week over 6 months, and those are all recorded. And then I did a class. Shanka's doing a class, but that's been going on for a while, and they're not really recorded. So as a resource, like these other 2 things, they actually, like, they exist already. Um, and then I did a class on Lamrim Year, which is a book by Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, where there's 365 contemplations, which I don't, I, you can get a relatively good sense of the Lamrim, but I think also it's meant to be joined with the study of a Lamrim text as well. But Venerable Dachen's meditations, um, that class that I did was a whole year, and it was twice a week, I think, for a whole year. So there's like hundreds, there's a lot of videos. Um, so, but, so those are resources that exist on the YouTube, channel from the past, if you want some, kind of ideas for how to integrate things. But in general, that's the idea, is that you would be like, okay, this is Guru Devotion Month. This is Precious Human Rebirth Month. And then you yourself would try to focus on readings that are related to that topic, on meditations that were related to that topic. And then, of course, the goal in between your sessions, you're also focusing on what how am I meant to be different? What is there are people in the world who understand this topic, and there are people who don't. And my job is to become someone who does. And the more I do, how would I be different? So if a person has no concept of the idea of guru devotion, then their relationship to spiritual teachers and so on would be like this because they just have no concept, right? Um, I'm trying to become someone who deeply understands Guru devotion, or how to properly relate to the spiritual guide. So, in between the purpose of my study, the purpose of my meditation is to change my mind, is to, when I'm not studying, when I'm not meditating, then if I just recollect whoever it is that I'm relating to as my spiritual guide, I should be thinking about them differently over time, not, okay, on Monday I did this, on Tuesday I'm done. It's a long process, but over time there should be shifts, there should be changes. And, or like with death and impermanence, there are people who have don't want to, think about, they think is, oh, it's terrible to, like, don't say that. It's terrible to even, like somehow you make it true that you're going to die if you think about it. If you don't think about it, then it won't happen. It won't be true. Like it's, you know, there are people that are legitimately like that in the world, and that's not beneficial as a way of thinking. Um, and so the more I familiarize my mind with this topic, the goal is that I naturally turn away from distraction. I'm naturally attracted to my practice. I find it easier to engage in my practice. I find it easier to avoid non-virtue. I find it easier to avoid distraction. Um, so in the break times, Buddhism basically would say, well, you've got formal practice and an informal practice. If you're studying, if you're meditating, that's formal practice. If you're doing anything other than that, that's your break time. That's, you're living your life up until you're going to study again, up until you're going to meditate again. And in the break time, you should be trying to recollect what the insights that you had in your sessions of meditation, in your study, and living in accordance with those insights, living, like what would a person be like if they understood this topic? Um, would they waste their time in the way that I'm thinking about wasting my time, in the way that I'm attracted to wasting my time? Would they do that? And in my own meditation, did I have moments where I had flashes of feeling that kind of urgency, that kind of, and can I kind of remember that urgency? And just by remembering that, it will have a domino effect in the next couple of moments, the next 10 minutes, the next hour. So then the more you can recollect those insights, then the more your life will be informed by your formal practice, and the less of a disconnect there will be between where you are and where you're trying to go, because you're just extending the vehicle that you're using to get where you want to go. Your formal practice is the main vehicle, and then recollecting your insights in the break time is how you're deepening that. And then, would a person, um, if I just meditated on compassion, and then someone needed help and I just walked past them, I ignored them, you know, there's a disconnect there, right? So you try to find opportunities to put into practice what you've meditated on, what you have familiarized your mind with. And of course, it's a long process, and we all make mistakes. We have good days and bad days. We're more stressed out, we're less stressed out. We find it more difficult or less difficult. But it's just a process of training the mind to live out of the insights that we're generating through our study and through our meditation. Okay, so we will move into then our first meditation of the day. If you want to stretch, you can take a moment to stretch. Okay, so the first meditation it will do just to introduce it will be on the continuity of mind. And the purpose of the meditation of the continuity of mind is to try to get some sense that our mind is this beginningless and endless continuity, because also the topic is death and rebirth, right? So death is not just the end, death is a transition into the next life, and that it is dependent upon the mind itself being a beginningless and endless continuity of moments. So this meditation is to help us to experience the mind as this beginningless and endless continuity of mental moments. So let's adopt a meditation posture. So we try to think about keeping our feet flat on the floor and our back straight, torso open, hands in the lap right over left with the palms upturned and the thumbs gently touching. Our eyes are gently closed or slightly open, making sure we let in enough light to remain alert. Try to maintain an awareness of not slouching, not leaning. We also let go of any unnecessary tension or rigidity in the body, relaxing into a stable, comfortable, upright position, just allowing the body to fall into place. And begin to move your mind inward away from the external world, allowing sights and sounds to be as they are without investigation, constraining your awareness just to the body and mind. And begin to concentrate your awareness in the present by attending closely to the physical sensation of the air as it moves into and back out of the tip of the nostrils, giving yourself the instruction to notice quickly when anything other than that one physical sensation is arising in the mind, and then without judgment or frustration, to lift your awareness up from those distractions and place it gently but firmly again and again on the breath. And begin to follow your mind backward, starting with today, tracking your experiences back to the moment of waking, following the chain of causality in the mind. One impulse, one intention give rise to an action. And how we responded as well to the environment, other people, the news, the weather, how that impacted the mind, how it set off a new chain of mental events, thoughts, feelings. And track the activity of the mind over the course of this day so far. Move your mind backward. Think, how did the activities of yesterday impact my thoughts, my feelings when I awoke today? And go back over the last week, the last month, the last year in the same way, trying to identify how the mind is functioning, how one decision, one thought gives rise to the next decision. Maybe some things are continually excluded from our wisdom. Some things are just ignored. Some things are uncomfortable. And that too gives rise to a habit. And try to think about how your ego is interpreting your life, how you're drawn to objects of attachment, how you push away objects of aversion, how you conceive of yourself, and how that has changed over time, going back further and further through the decades. And generate a strong insight that the mind is both impermanent, changing moment by moment by moment, and also eternal. That these moments are linked into one continuous, unbroken continuity. Just by analyzing your own direct experience of the mind's nature. If you can demonstrate this to yourself, then try to rest your mind in that understanding that the ego identity, the mind, is changing moment by moment by moment. And yet, the past is influencing the present, and the present will influence the future. And then we join this with an understanding of the implication of this beginningless and endless continuity is that this continuity will not remain in this one life indefinitely. So contemplate Gampopa's four contemplations on death. The first of which, I myself cannot stay long in this world and will have to go to the next life. Just pause and contemplate the meaning of that. I think my life ends, my breath ceases, this body becomes a corpse, and this mind has to wander in different places. I think from last year until now, 1 year has passed, and by that amount, my life has become shorter. From last month to this 1 month has passed, and my life is that much shorter. From yesterday until today, 1 day has passed, and my life is that much shorter. The moment that has just passed is the passing of 1 moment, and by that measure, my life is shorter. Contemplate that. And then think whatever I have right now, my friends, my relatives, my wealth, my possessions, my body. None of this can accompany me forever. One day soon, I will have to separate from them. And then when you're ready, we'll come back together. All right, let's take a 10-minute break and come back at 11:15 Mountain Time. Any thoughts or questions? All right, so the next meditation, we'll kind of probably combine two meditations into, meaning that we won't just like stop and have like a pause between them. So they'll sort of be done as one meditation, but we'll do the disadvantages of not remembering death and the advantages of remembering death. Um, and we'll do them, I think, as just one meditation. Certainly, they're related concepts. I think they could absolutely be. I mean, I would generally consider them to be two meditations, but they're basically the flip side, of one another. But really, to say that they're two just means that you stop and you kind of stretch and you go back and do it. Um, so we'll see. We'll see if it just. We'll see how much time it takes, and we might take a couple of minutes break. But those are the next contemplations that we'll do. The disadvantages of not remembering death and the advantages of remembering death. So let's reassert our motivation, remembering that the purpose of our spending this time is to progress along our spiritual paths, to become deeply familiar with this particular topic of the Lamrim on death and impermanence, so that we can, at this stage in our practice, master the small scope, become a genuine practitioner of the small scope by caring more about our overall spiritual trajectory than we care about just the comfort of this one life alone. Becoming someone who puts more time, more energy, more effort into creating the causes of a good succession of good future rebirths that are ultimately likely necessary to set ourselves up to achieve enlightenment, to avoid the pitfalls of the lower realms, which would delay our enlightenment, which would lead to sentient beings suffering for longer, waiting for us to achieve our enlightenment. So I think sentient beings need us to achieve our enlightenment as quickly as possible for their sake, to put an end to their suffering. And if we did take rebirth in the lower realms, we would be delayed for eons and eons of meaningless suffering. So we have to become familiar with the wisdom that helps us to avoid the lower realms, to establish only good future rebirths. And this topic of death and impermanence is an important part of becoming that genuine small scope practitioner. And with that motivation, we contemplate the disadvantages of not contemplating death. So we think, if I don't remember death, I will generate no concern of death. And if I have no concern of death, I won't practice. I think that the time of death is uncertain, meaning here we could go to an upper realm or we could go to a lower realm depending on the karma that ripens. That is the concern. The concern isn't that we will die, but the concern is that we might die without having created virtuous karma. That concern motivates our practice. Without that concern, we will be energized to just follow worldly pursuits, attachment to comfort, fame, wealth, status, sensory pleasures. This life will go by without practice. So contemplate at disadvantage. The second disadvantage is that we are prone to procrastination. Any time that we might remember practicing, we'll be likely to put it off to the future, thinking now's not the right time. I'll wait until I have better conditions because I'm not going to die today. I'll practice tomorrow, next week. Everything else will become more important. And due to the power of that procrastination, still, I'll spend this life in worldly pursuits, always thinking there's more time. And contemplate the truth of this in your own experience. The third disadvantage of not remembering death is that whatever practice we do engage in will be negatively impacted by our coming under the influence of the eight worldly concerns. Not having practiced the antidote to the eight worldly concerns, that recollection of death, our practice will become stained with the desire for wealth, comfort, possessions, praise. So our motivation will be impure because of the depth of our familiarity with the eight worldly concerns. Our practice will be poisoned by attachment and aversion. Again, contemplate this, how this has crept up in your own practice. The fourth disadvantage is that whatever practice we have without constantly recollecting death will be intermittent. It will lack depth and seriousness. Our practice will only be able to be maintained for short periods of time before we get bored, get distracted. We'll be prone to discouragement, thinking that realizations should come quickly, easily. due to the power of attachment to comfort. And so our practice will be short lived, lacking consistency. To contemplate how that has been unfolding in your experience. The next disadvantage is that if I don't remember death can come at any moment, I will easily allow myself to come under the influence of attachment, aversion, and on the basis of that, I will engage in many negative actions. If we think that death can come at any moment, we will be motivated to avoid hatred, anger, strong attachment, not wanting it to influence our death. Those benefits are not available if we don't constantly recollect death. So think about how failing to recollect death plays a role in your own life, in indulging in negativity. last disadvantage is that we will be unprepared at the time of our death. And it will be difficult to die with a positive, virtuous mind, having lived under the influence of the 8 worldly concerns, having spent our lives that way, being subject to all of those negativities. When the time of our death comes, there will be great regret in the time that was wasted, the negativities that were indulged in. How to play out that path of never remembering impermanence and death, and see the truth of arriving at one's death in that way. And then when you're ready, we'll come back together. And so let's dedicate. So we think about what we've done so far. First, two meditations, and we think about our motivation that we established and that we reasserted, what we recollected. And we think that by having engaged in these contemplations, that we have actualized that motivation that we established, which has generated positive energy in our minds. And I think that we freely offer the fruit of our practice, that positive energy, for the benefit of all sentient beings without exception. Thinking strongly when this positive energy ripens, may it serve as a cause and condition to eliminate war, conflict, poverty, famine, disease, disasters, all painful, inner and outer conditions. May it fully ripen the minds of all sentient beings. May they quickly meet perfect teachers and arise in the state of full enlightenment. May I too achieve the state of enlightenment so that I might work for the benefit of sentient beings perfectly. May any obstacles facing the Guru's long life be completely dispelled. And may I and all sentient beings in this moment come under the joyful care and guidance of enlightened beings. May we be guided and protected until we swiftly achieve that state of enlightenment. All right. I decided it was more productive to not go through another 6 contemplations all at once. Be more productive to be fresh when we do that. So we've got 10 minutes. Are there thoughts or questions or anything before we break for lunch? Nope. Okay, so we will meet back at 1:30 and we'll finish up in the afternoon.